Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to the NTC podcast. This is episode 111, and this is brought to you by Sports Business Classroom. So, this is Aaron Washington. Glad to be back with you guys as your host. Co host is next to me. Avi Tyagi is on my right. And we are just really excited right now because, it's playoff ball. So, you can't beat the atmosphere, the high stakes, the high level play of playoff basketball. We're essentially, in my opinion, halfway through the first round. No series has been wrapped up yet, but we do have some 3-0 scenarios. We have a 3-1 series. We have a 2-2, a couple 2-2s, I think. So, this is getting to be the part of the first round where it's like, okay, we're getting into crunch time here. Things are some series here have been wrapped up, but there's some other series that we have a long way to go, like Mavericks and Clippers that we just watched earlier today, which was a magnificent game. Shouts to Kyrie Irving, shouts to Paul George, shouts to James Harden. Those guys really took over different parts of the game, but ultimately it was the Clippers that took over. So just a great time right now. I'm thrilled. Avi, I'm sure you're thrilled. There's a couple of series that have been a little bit interesting in that I wasn't expecting them to go the way that they have, and we'll get to one of those here later. But I hope it's been a positive experience for you so far, just watching how all these series have gone down.
It's been chaos, but I absolutely love it. I think even more than past years, I feel like even though some of the scores here are lopsided, Miami and Celtics aside, which kind of felt like one-way traffic, except for game two, where it felt like the Celtics were trying something. You know how they are. They're always experimenting something and it backfired. But otherwise, most of the series, even when they feel like they shouldn't be close, they're still entertaining. We'll get to one of the series later that isn't close at all, and yet, in my opinion, might be the most fun series so far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that for sure. I think it could. I wish it was a little bit better than it is, but yeah, it has been entertaining. And one of the teams the team that's down 3-1 has led for. I think I listened during the broadcast. It was like 130 minutes of the series they've led, which blows my mind. So we'll get to that a little bit later here. But to kick things off, guys, we're going to start with, in my opinion, has been the best series so far. And we mentioned that this could be the best series back when we did our playoff preview podcast. This is the Sixers-Knicks series of the first round. New York and Philadelphia, as predicted, have put on a show for us. These are two fan bases that are absolutely insane. They might be the most avid, crazy, just absolutely insane fan bases that we have in basketball. And today's battle took place in Philadelphia, but Philadelphia could not close the deal. They lost 104-111 to New York. And Jalen Brunson, man, what else is there to say about this guy? 47 points, a Knicks playoff all-time record, just beating out Bernard King's 46 points. It's a record that stood for about 40 years now. So the fact that he was able to eclipse that in this big game today that put him up 3-1 over the pesky Sixers was just incredible to watch. He can get things done. He can make a shot for himself against just about any player on that floor, including Embiid. He had a big-time bucket down the stretch in the fourth quarter, last few minutes. He had Embiid, I think it was around the free throw line, high post area, and he found a way to get a shot off over Embiid and then took about 2 or 3 bounces and went in. So it's just kind of like, hey, you play the game the right way. It's like the basketball gods are just going to bless you with a nice bounce here and there. It's like, hey, you're putting on a show. We'll give you another one. Crazy shot, but it's going to go in for you. So Brunson leads the charge. He's the engine. He had a couple of rough outings to start off in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I was thinking that this guy is too good to be held down for 4, 5, 6 games, whatever the total series ends up being. And then sure enough, the past 2 games, he's really kind of come into his own. And especially today, he manhandled every single defender that Philly put on him. I'm a little curious as to why they didn't kind of send another defender more often. They were trusting in the one-on-one matchups, and they just got flamed every single time down. If you were the Sixers, would you start sending a double, once Brunson kind of starts cooking everybody and, gets up to 30-plus points in that game?
See, here's the thing. They were doing that, and then Josh Hart decided that from now on, I will only hit threes. And Deuce McBride just decided I will also be a flamethrower. So earlier in the series, they were throwing doubles really frequently at Brunson.
Yeah.
And it was not working at all. They still went down 2-1. So Nurse decided, whatever, he can't be that good, right? Let me just let him play single coverage. There's a bunch of times that they'll set up a screening action where the whole purpose is just to get Oubre or Tobias Harris onto Brunson from the Knicks perspective. And the Sixers were like, Yeah, sure, whatever. They're athletic. Well, not Tobias so much, but Oubre's athletic. What's Brunson going to do against these bigger, more athletic guys, right? He's probably not going to do much. Whoops.
And he's like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cook each and
Whoops.
every one of them time
Oh
after
my
time.
God.
Doesn't
He
matter.
was feasting on them. I've never seen Oubre look so helpless. I'm surprised he
There's
didn't
no
foul out of the game. He looked absolutely helpless.
hmm With a smaller player like that, it really just kind of demonstrates how smart of a player they are.
Yeah.
They're not dominating with athleticism or length or anything like that, pure size. It's just the start stop motions, it's the handle, it's the
Yes.
ability to draw fouls. I think it's also the ability to really scare defenders into fouling. So they're more hesitant to jump or to go for the ball or to just really go all out on a stop because they know that Brunson is a manipulator. If you jump, he's going to get you in the air. He's going to draw a foul, kind of like Embiid in that way. But I don't think he's as reliant on that as Embiid was today. I got some words on Embiid, but with Brunson, man, he's just so crafty. He can make something out
Oh
of
my God, he is.
absolutely nothing. Like you look like the possession is dead, and he just
There
kind
is
of
no height disadvantage when he's driving, when he's operating. He uses
yeah,
I don't think I've seen
instantly.
anybody use their body as well to block. Like I've watched Lowry do it for years, and again, Lowry's going to become a Hall of Famer based off of this skill. He was great at 3-point shooting, but also within the arc. Most of his game was, hey, I'm just big, I'm sturdy, I got girth, I'm just going to use it. He gets into
Yep.
the paint, he kind of keeps the defender behind him hostage, and he's great at being able to get shots off. Brunson honestly takes it one step further. That floater he has going, when that floater is cooking, he's basically unstoppable.
Oh man, it's unfair because you put that defender on his back, and then you have whoever that might be, Embiid or whoever in front of him, and they're just far enough off that he has space to put that floater up, and it's almost automatic. I mean,
It's
you're just kind of
vicious.
stuck at that point.
It's vicious. I mean, I would argue what Brunson did today might be the singular best performance so far of the playoffs. I mean, it
I
was
think it was
remarkable what he was able to do so often against. I know it was one-on-one coverage, but again, even once he gets into the paint, you still have Embiid back there. Maybe Paul Reed sometimes. Like there were people converging on him, and it just
right.
didn't seem to matter. He was just making the right decision all the time. It is very rare in a playoff setting that you will find someone who scored 40 plus points and had 10 or more assists with less than 3 turnovers. And that's what he just did
Yeah,
today.
that's a
On
master
efficient
class.
shooting, by the way.
Yeah,
I
he had
actually
all
went to
the
look it up.
ingredients.
There's only, I believe, 7 or 8 occurrences of that happening at all.
Yeah,
It is
extremely
crazy
great.
what he did today. Like,
Super efficient, super
it is one
smart.
of the best playoff performances in, well, last year there were some great ones, but
I'm still
I could
picking
argue
Jimmy,
it's
man.
probably one of the 100 best playoff performances of all
Yeah,
time, and that's still saying something.
for sure. That's a big reason why they won today. But another big reason as to why the Knicks were able to close this game out was the fact that that game rebounding, that performance they showed in
Ah,
that fourth quarter was ridiculous.
they
Like
are
the
silly,
Sixers
man.
could not close possessions with the rebound. They would shoot, either they would foul or the Knicks were going to get 2 or 3 more opportunities to score because they would get these offensive rebounds. So the Knicks ended up having 15 offensive rebounds in this game. Uh, and the Sixers only
They
had
had
9,
7 in the fourth quarter.
7 in the fourth quarter. So you see that
My
15 and like
God.
almost half of them were just in that period alone. So you would see the Sixers go up and it's like, all right, we actually got a miss. Let's get back. Let's get a possession. And then the Knicks grab another possession due to the offensive rebound, in large part because of Josh Hart, 17 boards. OG, great game by OG, had 14 boards. And even Precious Achua deserves some credit.
Yeah.
Some low-key good rim protection, some
He was good, man. He was
rebounding.
good.
Yeah, 7
He
boards
can't
in
do
the
anything on
zone.
offense, but man, he was good on defense. He
He just
really
played
helped
his
them out.
role. It's just stick to the rim, protect the rim, get some boards,
But he
hustle.
offers something different because Mitchell Robinson wasn't able to play today, and normally that would be really concerning. And then Hardenstein starts fouling out, and all of a sudden you're like, oh boy, we're down to Precious. But even last game, he started showing it a bit. He's the most switchable of the five, which is really helpful when a lot of times Philly is just resorting to, oh, let's just get a bunch of switches so that Maxi can cook someone. That doesn't
Yep.
work as well when it's Precious. He can't blow by Precious as easily as everybody else. And then two, surprisingly, I think he's guarding Embiid better than Mitchell Robinson or even Hardenstein at times because he doesn't foul as often. I think because of his
Yep.
quickness and because he's so sturdy, he can kind of keep his hands up a little bit easier when he's guarding Embiid, and he doesn't have to reach into the cookie jar as often. And because if you do that against Embiid, he's just going to go, oh, two free
Just
throws.
ask Hardenstein how that worked out. Well, it was
Yeah,
5,000 in one quarter. He had no fouls at halftime, and the third quarter he picked up 5 fouls, almost fouled out of one quarter. Because Embiid, like you said, if you have your hands anywhere other than this, they
yeah.
start going out, and then Embiid's just going to do one of these numbers. Just the Harden
Oh,
special that we
the
saw for
Harden
so
flail,
many
the
years.
Harden flail, man.
You
He
put your
is
arm out
master of
there.
the art.
Yeah, I'm going to take advantage. So I'm going to do one of these, and it's like, hey, you got to call it because his arm is right here on my arm. So you can say what you want, foul baiting and whatnot, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is a foul. Now,
Yeah.
I want to shift over to the Sixers real quick here because when it comes to Embiid, there was one play in particular that drove me crazy, and you might know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I think I
It
will.
was, I want to say it was the last minute or so of the game, and the
Yeah, I
Sixers
knew you were
were
going to say
down,
this.
I think, 2 possessions, and they just needed a basket, like as quickly as possible. So Embiid gets the ball. I want to say it was the left, like short corner area, and there wasn't the defender was probably 10 feet off him, and he
Yeah.
just declined, decided he didn't want to shoot the ball, and he drove right into, I think, 3 defenders at the rim, went for a reverse layup,
Oh,
and basically got blocked, shot got altered, he missed it. And I don't know why he did that. I think he was maybe trying to draw a foul as he was going up for the shot, get an and one, something like
yep.
that. So I think in that instance, his all out desire to just draw fouls kind of just went too far. Sometimes, like, hey, just get a shot up, just make the right basketball play in that scenario. And I don't think he did. And I think that was a theme for Embiid, honestly, and Maxey too. Like in that fourth quarter,
Yeah,
I
it
think
really
they got
was.
worn down. And Embiid, I think, yes, he got worn down physically. Like you'll see him just move slower and just not be as athletic as we're used to seeing him, but also mentally worn down. Low IQ plays like that shot that he didn't take, uh, picking up half court, like pressuring half court, like Brunson half court. I'm just sitting there like he did it twice in the last
Yes,
few minutes
it
of the game.
was.
I'm sitting there like,
His decision making.
why are you out
The almost turnover he
30,
had
40 feet?
trying to throw it to Maxi as an outlet pass, he just almost threw it out
Yeah,
as a
that they
turnover.
had
Like
to
there were
have
many
reviewed
mistakes.
and it got overturned and they
Maxi
happened to
saved
call
him.
it
That was
ball.
a terrible pass.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was way too far out in front of Maxey. But
Yep.
plays like that are just an example of how Embiid, I think he got worn down. It's like it's kind of how it works when you get tired. Like when you get tired, yeah, you move slower, but you are more prone to mistakes when
Yeah.
you are just worn down. And Embiid played almost 44 minutes today. In that fourth quarter, he didn't come out at all. He played the entire stretch run of that game. I think that was a mistake on Nick Nurse's part, playing him that long without a breather. Uh, Embiid is not healthy, and he's not in shape. I don't think that's a
Yeah,
good
he's
idea.
not.
So I wouldn't have done that if I were him.
Yeah, some of it is I think with Embiid, when his physical stamina starts deteriorating, at the same time, I think his mental, not competitive stamina even, I would say his mental stamina in terms of being able to like quickly process what's going on the floor and make accurate decisions. I think that's when that starts draining away as well. Like some people, like someone like Jokic, even if Jokic is tired and he plays like 50 minutes at times because Denver has no bench, we'll get to that later. Because he's such a natural processor of the game, I think it's easier for him, even when he's tired, to almost always make the right decisions. Whereas Embiid is someone who, over the years, has improved his passing, but it's not like it's something that comes naturally to him. So I think in those clutch moments, the decision of do I take this shot? Do I make a pass? What do I do here? Do I go for a foul? What am I supposed to do in terms of like game flow, game state? There was the end of the game too. Maxi had it as well, where Lowry tries to miss the free throw. Maxi seems to be like the only one who doesn't really realize what he's intending to do here, and because of that, they lose a chance at maybe getting the rebound, getting a three off. Like it's those small details like that that seem to pursue Philly every year for the last 5, 6 years.
Yep.
There's always a small detail mistake that comes to bite them. I mean, this series so much reminds me of the Hawks series they had, the one where it seemed like everything was laid out for them, and here we have this small little guard who's just being hidden defensively by this Capella then, and now we have Hartenstein, Precious, Mitchell Robinson. But we have this rim protector that can kind of match up against Embiid, and we have this small guard who's just tearing through all of our guys.
Same story,
Yeah,
different year. And
different
yeah,
coach. everything feels different. Personnel has changed a lot, except for Tobias Harris, who got cooked then and is getting cooked now, and probably won't be
He's
getting
not
cooked
giving them
next
hardly
year because he'll be
anything.
on a different team. But whatever.
Yeah. He's hardly not giving them anything. But yeah, the Sixers offense is the complete opposite of what we saw in the regular season. In the regular
Yeah,
season, it looked like there was an evolution. Like Nick Nurse had Embiid making plays for others. It looked like he was better
yes,
in double teams, like processing the game, making these passes. But I think because he is fatigued, he's not 100%. Like you're seeing him kind of devolve back into that player that he was like 2, 3, 4 years ago, where you double him, and it's like, okay, he may pass out of it, he might get out of it, but it's an errant pass. It's not on time.
and he
It's
doesn't trust his knee.
yeah,
He's
he
playing like someone who doesn't
definitely.
trust his knee. Even on the play you brought up, he passed at the jumper, which first of all, weird choice. He drives in. He actually gets a good lane, but he goes to the right side of the rim, maybe to
Yeah, he
draw a
goes.
foul, not considering that the left side of the rim is wide open, or the
Mhm.
fact that instead of a Euro, if he tries a power jam, he might draw the foul anyways, and
Right.
he's more likely to finish it. Like he chose the hardest outcome there, where he was least likely to make the shot, and then
Exactly.
naturally he missed it. And that's
Exactly.
the stuff you can't be affording at that moment of time in the game, in my
No.
opinion. I just think it's so risky. If he had made it, I'm sure we would have all just come here and been like, "That's what stars do. It's great." So I
Yeah.
realize some of that is 2020 hindsight, but it just it was a real momentum. Not even momentum. They didn't have that much. It was a kind of like a game killer, honestly.
It was. And I mean, I really just feel for the Sixers as well because they had a real opportunity in game two to
They had one
really
today too, man.
even up that series. It should have been. I think it should have been 1-1. They were in control
Yeah,
of that game until the very last possible second. They were up four. I mean, geez, it was like what 12, 13 seconds left, up four, and they can't secure a rebound, or I think they secure a rebound, and Maxi has, I think he loses it, and it ends up getting to DiVincenzo, and he gets a 3-pointer, and I think they give up another three. Like that game right there also like really shifted because I think it was heading in Philadelphia's direction, and they
yeah,
couldn't close the game. They go down 0-2. So I mean, if they're 1-1 going back to Philly instead of 2-0, and you lose this game and it's 2-2 instead of 3-1, like that's a big difference here, between 2-2 and 3-1. So I mean, yeah, with the Sixers, it's just about like missed opportunities, and it's the really small stuff that kills them. Like these little mistakes here cost them games. It's like, hey, a missed box out, a missed coverage here. Like going back to that Embiid pressure at half court from a little bit earlier in the quarter, like he
yeah,
pressures half court, and now you end up having like two defenders on one offensive player. There's a miscommunication, and man, I can't remember who it was. They get an easy layup
yeah.
go out of
Because the
that.
Knicks are
They're
really good at tic
out
tac
of
toeing back
position.
there. They're really
Yeah,
good at tic tac toeing. If
yeah.
if the Sixers had come up against some of the other teams in the playoffs right now, I don't think they'd be punished as easily. But the number one thing I'm noticing watching the Knicks is just how well coached they are, and
Mhm.
just how many options they have. Like
Yeah,
Philly is at the point now where they're dependent on Oubre and Tobias Harris, and I mean it's just not working. Like it's just
yeah,
not working. There's nothing they can do, and they don't have that many options to go to. Batum was too passive with his shot and kind of physically isn't um athletically at the level where he can kind of compete in this series for a high number of minutes.
yeah,
Campaign, small guard, not really working defensively. Like they don't have that many options to go to. And meanwhile, I mean, I'm surprised I'm saying this about the Knicks, but I feel like Tibbs is managing this perfectly. Like I didn't know I would be saying this, but what he's done with Dante DiVincenzo, where he's just been like, "You've been great. You were maybe one of our 2 or 3 best players. Honestly, maybe you were our second best player." Once Randall went down and when OG was hurt for that last 2 month stretch.
yeah.
But I know that this series is not for you. I've seen it over the regular season. I saw it when I recruited you because I saw what you were in the Kings series last year. You're a great defender, except when you're going against small, speedy guards. Those give him a lot of trouble. He was unplayable last year against the Kings because Monk and Fox were just beating him off the dribble, just cooking him repeatedly to the point the Warriors couldn't even put him out there.
Mhm.
So what does Tibbs do? All right, it's fine. I don't really need you out here anyways. I'll just have everything go through Brunson, and I'll just put McBride out there because
Yeah,
Deuce,
James
Deuce
McBride.
is excellent at it.
Mhm.
Maxi can
Perfect.
get by almost everybody else, but McBride is the only one who gives him some trouble. He's still
Yeah.
Maxi. So there were still some instances where just one-on-one ISO, Maxi just blows by him, and they're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Just tip your cap. There's nothing else we can do here."
Yeah.
But for the most part, he does a really good job. And
He
we end
does.
up with a situation where in the fourth quarter, the Knicks only score 20 points, and it's fine because they still outscore the Sixers in that quarter because of
Yep.
how they just completely locked down Embiid and Maxi. Those
20 to
two combined to
16.
finish 2 for 13.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
So, I
just
mean, it worked out perfectly, like you said. But it's funny that you mentioned DiVincenzo and McBride. Those are the only two players other than I mean, you have DiVincenzo in the starting lineup. Okay, he plays 28 minutes. Hardenstein plays 28 minutes. Those other three players play 43 minutes for Brunson, 45 for Hart, 46 for OG.
the
So
two
it's just
special
funny how
baby.
like DiVincenzo, McBride would kind of go in and out, and then Hartenstein and Achua would go in and out.
Yeah.
And those other three guys, they almost never come out the game. Like they're there the entire time, and they stay effective. With Hart, yeah, he missed all 7 of his shot attempts, but
Hart is crazy, man. He
he's a
rebounds
madman.
so hard.
17 rebounds,
He is a
5
playoff
assists,
player if there's ever
3
been one.
blocks. Yeah, he's just he is a Tom Thibodeau Hall of Famer. I mean,
Oh, 100%.
you
100%.
can't ask for
Mount
any
Rushmore.
more
Mount
out of a
Rushmore
type of
Tibbs
guy.
player.
No,
If
100%. I'm plays almost the whole game. Every game is like, hey, you're coming out for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's it. The rest
I
of the
hope
time,
Tibbs makes the Hall
do
of
your
Fame one
thing.
day, and I hope that when he does, the first name he mentions is Josh Hart. None of the stars, not KG, not anybody else. Let's start with
Hart.
Josh Hart.
Josh Hart brings the heart, man.
Yeah,
That's
he
that's
really
what he
does.
does. That's what he does. So let's move on to the second series here.
Wait, before we go on, I just wanted to mention one more thing. I thought it was really interesting how over the course of the series, it felt like, not it felt like, they were closing repeatedly with McBride over DiVincenzo. And today, when they closed with Achua and McBride over Hartenstein and DiVincenzo, that was actually key to holding the 76ers to only 16 points in that fourth quarter.
Right.
Because of how switchable that lineup is, they almost the last 5-6 minutes they almost didn't take any of them out except for like foul and free throw purposes, just because of how effective those two are at switching and on man-to-man defense. So even without Mitchell Robinson, even with Boyan getting hurt, and who knows if he'll come back, I think the Knicks might have enough where they can just ride that 7-man rotation into another win in this series and close it
Yeah.
out maybe in 5.
Probably. I mean, but it's going to be 5 or 6. Like, I don't see how the Sixers have enough to really kind of close that gap and to get back in it and win it. But,
Because
we'll
those
see.
McBride and backup center lineups that they've had over the course of the series, those are actually the ones where they're winning the series. Like if you go look at it, the over the course of 4 games, it's a small sample. If you compare the starting lineups, the Philly starting lineup is actually beating the Knicks starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that when we start getting into the bench, all these McBride lineups, Mitchell Robinson lineups, Achua now, these lineups are absolutely destroying the 76ers backups. And it kind of shows like, okay, this is maybe where you miss Melton. This is kind of where
Yeah.
you miss having, just anyone who can create a shot and can actually defend, because Tobias Harris and Kelly Oubre are not it. Like Lowry can't really do anything on offense, even though he hustles so hard right now on defense.
He does.
It is what it is.
It is
Another
what it is, man.
potentially fruitless playoff run for Philly.
I think so. It's unfortunate, but, what can you do? But there's a lot of talk about benches. And, if we're going to talk about benches, we have to bring up one of these other teams here, the Denver Nuggets and the Lakers. So with this series, it's still ongoing as of this recording. So just last night, the Lakers were able to finally break that 11-game losing streak to the Denver Nuggets, going back all the way to last season, last playoffs. So they won 119 to 109. They were actually able to close the game, prevent another Nuggets comeback. And Davis was incredible with 25 points, 23 boards, 6 assists. LeBron stayed on the attack. He did what he does so well for year in and year out. The interesting thing, though, when it comes to like looking at the performance of these two teams, is the Nuggets, the distribution of points between the starters and the bench. So you look at the starters and you're like, okay, great stat lines all over the place. You get another triple-double from Jokic. Yeah, Jamal Murray had an off game. He still had 22 points, but it was on 9 of 23 shooting, a very inefficient performance. And then you look at Okay, all these five guys right here, we can trust them. They do what they do. That's great, no problems. How about the bench? How many points did the bench have altogether? And you look at the totals,
Oh, I have the stats, man. It's
you get
bad.
five.
It's bad.
5 points
All series.
from non-starters the entire game. Just 5 points. And when you look at that distribution, it's like this is the problem. This is the one real weakness of this Denver lineup that I think we talking about the whole season. You can rely on those starters. You can play them a lot of minutes, sure. But I mean, at some point, you have to play the bench. Even Tibbs has to play the bench at some point. You can't
Yeah, even Tibbs.
guys.
Tibbs right now is winning a series off of his bench. Just think
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
Tibbs is winning a series off of his bench. You need at least 2 or 3 reliable contributors. Everyone talks about the stars. Whenever people talk about it, they talk about the legacy of the stars. Maybe even some starters who are able to establish themselves into bigger names. But a series can really be won by the strength of who your sixth, seventh, and eighth man are versus your opponents. And they might beat the Lakers, but they're going to have a lot of trouble against some of these other teams if we're reliant on Christian Brown, Reggie Jackson, and 5 minutes of DeAndre Jordan or whatever we're going to get.
Right. Right. I mean, and we're going to talk about the team that they more than likely will play in the next round. They have no problems with that bench. Their bench
They
is
have
awesome.
no problems. Their bench is
Totally
incredible.
awesome. It's totally opposite. But this series overall,
The Nuggets would bite my hand off for one of those bench players, man.
dude, for sure, you can always rely on those guys. Both ends. Both ends.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But this series has really been dictated, I think, by just the poise and the clutch performance of the Nuggets. That's how they really secured those 3 wins before they lost the other night. The Lakers always seem to have a double-digit lead in that game. Second quarter, third quarter, maybe even fourth quarter. Double-digit lead. They find a way to stay in control, but they can't close games. That's the way that the Nuggets have really taken over and were able to get a commanding 3-0 lead before going on. Now it's only 3-1. But it's just they're just so smart and they're so deliberate with how they attack, and they're really great at just wearing down teams over time. Jokic is just wearing guys down, wearing Davis down with his physicality, his high basketball IQ. Jamal Murray last night didn't really have it, but usually he's able to kind of supplement that with his high octane offense. Michael Porter Jr., I think, deserves a lot of credit as well. I don't think we're talking about his performance enough in this series. Last game, Porter 27 points, 10 of 20 from the field, 4 threes, 11 rebounds, improved defensive player, gives a lot of effort on that end. He's still 6'10". So it's like, even though he's not a stopper, long wingspan, 6'10" frame.
And he makes everything. He makes everything. And they kind of need that right now because Jamal Murray's been struggling a little bit. And last game, he kind of, started tugging at his leg a little. So
he did.
I don't
That's
know, man.
Worrying.
It is a little worrying.
Yeah. But it's just those other guys. And in game 3, it was Aaron Gordon that had the awesome performance for them. So they just always have somebody in that starting lineup that could really contribute. Even KCP, game 4, was able to contribute here with 14 points and 6 of 8 shooting. It's just like that. These guys, they're placed so well together that everyone's a threat at all times. You can never ignore one of those guys. Aaron Gordon, dunker spot. That's what he does. Lobs, dump down passes, ducking the ball. MPJ, catch and shoot, coming off of screens, lightning quick release. He's going to get some threes up. He's going to make those. KCP, transition baskets.
Second team all defense type of guard, right? And then transition baskets, yes. And then most importantly, I think for this team, which has one other flaw we almost never talk about, they don't shoot many threes. They really don't. They're so dependent on Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray sometimes, but even he doesn't like to pull up from 3, honestly, as often as maybe he could. It's really KCP spot up threes and Michael Porter Jr. just running around being Mr. I shoot every time I get the rock. Michael never passed the ball, Porter. Like they're really dependent on that shooting to kind of keep the team afloat. And they're starting to run into a little bit of a math problem already. And that's just even with the starting lineup. I mean, we'll talk about the bench whenever you want to, whenever we're ready. But it's Oh
Yeah,
my god, I've never
it's
seen worse bench stats, man. It's so
it's
so bad.
it's awful. But real quick before we get to the bench, it's the three pointers you're mentioning. It's a good thing for the Nuggets because, like you said, they're not a high frequency 3 point team in terms of attempts, but the Lakers are probably even less of a frequent 3 point shooting team. So that works out in the Nuggets' favor. They're not going to get blasted from 3 point range in terms of like the other team having just way more attempts. The Lakers actually had less attempts than the Nuggets in that last game. The Nuggets had 30 total. The Lakers only had 26. But yeah,
You want to
MPJ
know who the,
does
quick?
carry
You
the
want to
load
know
for
who the
them.
bottom three is?
All
Didn't mean
right,
to
let's
interrupt
hear
you
it.
there, but it was just such a perfect moment when you said that. You want
Yeah,
to know who the bottom three is in terms of the least 3 point attempts per game over the regular season?
I would think is Phoenix in there?
Nope. Bottom three, Nuggets, least. Second least is the Magic. Third least is the Lakers. So,
Oh, there you go. There
yep.
you go. Yeah, both those teams in this series, like neither of them like to get a lot of threes up. But I mean, MPJ had 11, and then no one else had more than five. Jokic has five. Murray has four. I think that's really low for Murray. I would like to see Murray at least attempt
Me
seven or
too.
eight.
Me too.
And he didn't
They
shoot
need it.
well, but he's got to get more up than that. And I think with the way they move the ball and they're so connected, and you have a great screener like Jokic, I would think, and Aaron Gordon as far as a great screener, I would think that they would be able to spring loose for at least a few more threes. Just trying to get more points on the board. I think that's really important if you're going to have a bench that struggles. Now getting to the bench, and you
Oh
look at the
man.
point totals.
Oh my god.
Peyton Watson 0 for 3, Christian Braun 0 for 2, Reggie Jackson 0 for 1. He played 8 minutes and 49 seconds. And then Justin Holiday 1 for 3. And he only played 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So you're getting 3 points from Holiday, 2 points from Peyton Watson. That's it for the bench. Everything else came from the starters. That's tough to overcome. And then you look at
It's
if we go
bad.
to the Lakers, I mean, the Lakers didn't even really have that much of a bench performance, but I mean, it was more than the Nuggets.
They
You
have
know,
they at least have Torian Prince existing. They have
right?
hopes that maybe Spencer Dinwiddie can find something ever. Maybe Gabe Vincent can tap back into Miami form. I mean, the Nuggets. Oh, just tell me when I'm. Bring me off the bench. Tell me when I can just bring out the stats of just how putrid this has been. Just tell me when I can go. I'm ready, man.
Give us the full story of the
Okay, you
Jordan
want the
bench.
full story? Oh my god, it's bad. Okay, here's the full story. The Nuggets bench has scored 46 points total, the whole bench, in 4 games. In four
Yikes!
games. They've shot 18 for 60, despite almost all of their shots being either catch and shoot or near the rim or in the paint.
Wow,
18 for 60. Terrible. 30%, right? Not from three, from the field. From three. That bench is shooting 5 for 33.
man,
15%.
not great, not great.
And even defensively, bless their hearts, Reggie Jackson and Christian Braun and Justin Holiday, they try. But in this series, even against D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, who are fine, good players, above average guards, I would say,
Yeah,
they're not able to stop them. So you're starting to reach a point where your bench, you have a one-way contributor, and it's Peyton Watson because he can actually contribute a lot as a second side shot blocker.
oh yeah,
And that's
all the
basically all you can rely on right now. Because even
time.
his three isn't falling. So they really have 5.5 players in this series. And it's
Yep,
really scary. Like
that is scary.
none of their guys off the bench right now can provide effective on-ball containment. And they have nothing else to turn to. I started thinking about it. Okay, if you're a coach, what adjustments can you make here? Your starting lineup is plus 4.5 per 100 possessions against the Lakers.
Mhm.
Typically, if your starting lineup is that good in a playoff setting, you can just pull out these victories comfortably. Nuggets are not in that position. We just need someone who can kind of stem the tide. You start looking through their lineups, through their roster. It's like, oh boy, Zeke Naji, eh. Julian
Yeah, I don't really
Strother,
trust him. Julian's not going to be
Julian
that
Strother
defense
has
that you need.
he doesn't give me enough defensively, and he's not
You
making
know,
enough shots for me to consider him. Hunter Tyson, no, I'm not ready for that yet either.
oh,
I mean, they've reached a point; it's bad. I'm really thinking about it. They might need to play DeAndre Jordan a few more minutes, which is crazy. I can't believe I'm saying that.
in
They might
2024,
honestly
that
have to
is
start
crazy.
playing more big lineups and ask Jokic to be spaced out a little bit more, which I don't like. But I don't know what else. There is no cavalry coming. That's kind of the issue
No,
here. Like
it is what it
I
is.
was sincerely considering benching Reggie Jackson and just giving him DNPs and bringing in Jalen Pickett.
Mm.
That's where I'm at. Jalen Pickett, the guy who has played maybe no more than 8 minutes per game in any game this season. I'm considering bringing him in for Game 5 of the Lakers series because his minutes could not possibly be worse than what Reggie Jackson is doing. And if he
Agreed.
does all right, maybe we ride with it into round 2.
I think it's
That's
worth
where
a
we're
shot.
at. That's where
I
we're
think
at.
it's worth a shot. When it comes to, I think in the playoffs, a huge component of playoff success is flexibility. And when it comes to things that are working and not working, sometimes you have to be willing to kind of step outside the box. This is what makes Spo so good. He
Yes.
will just play guys and use different coverages and different strategies that not many people would think to do. And it works sometimes. And there's one player in this series we're going to talk about next that came into the game and kind of changed the dynamic a little bit of the game. So it's like, and he wasn't playing that much before. So I think that by bringing in somebody, even if they haven't played much, like you bring them in and like, hey, give them a few minutes. What they can
Just
do
try
for
it,
you.
man. It can't be worse
Yeah,
than this.
they
It,
don't
it
have to be
can't be worse than
flamethrowers.
this.
Just get some good shots. Just be competent on defense. Like you're a bench guy. Like we have high octane players. We don't need you to be a world beater and hit a bunch of threes or whatever. But like, hey, just give me enough to stay afloat in bench lineups until the main rotation guys get back in. Those starters get back in. That's what we need. So for the Nuggets, I don't think it's going to work enough against them in this series. And I think you mentioned that before. This series, they should have enough. I honestly think Game 5, they get back to Denver, and Murray gets back on his game. He's hitting shots like he should, and maybe get a few more points from the bench. Maybe instead of 5, they get 10. I don't think it's too much to ask.
I don't
I
know,
think
man.
they're gonna.
It
I
might be
think they're
too much
gonna.
to ask, man. It might be.
I'll trust them to get 5 more points. I think they can do that. But I think they're going to run away from the Lakers in Game 5. I'm just going to go out and say it. I would love to be
I
wrong.
hope so.
Somehow the Lakers get another one. That'd be great. But I think the Nuggets are like, okay, we need to finish this off, get some rest because round 2 is going to be rough. So we need to finish
If
this
there
off.
was ever a recipe in my mind, if someone asked me, okay, get to imagine how a 3-0 comeback would occur, if there was ever a way for me to imagine that, the way the series is going so far, this would be the start of my script. Okay, that this would be how it begins. We have a center who defensively is compromised at times. Like our center can kind of cook his center whenever we actually involve him in our actions, which they finally started doing consistently in the fourth quarter. Because the fourth quarter and third quarter of Game 3 and Game 2 were just atrocious. What they were doing, sticking Anthony Davis to the side like he was, Rui Hachimura or something. Like what they were doing to try to get LeBron his favorite a little target practice looks was a complete joke. Their pace was too slow. They weren't using Reeves and D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis's full potential up and down the court. And the Nuggets are starting to get tired. They're relying on 5 guys. All it takes now is one tweak or injury to Jamal Murray as the ball handler. And we're in a position now where a 3-0 comeback could happen. They have nothing else to turn to. I don't think they can survive with the Reggie Jackson playoff run here. So
Yeah.
if ever there was I know Lakers fans are always optimistic and hopeful anyways, which is a good thing about them. But before they get ready to fire Darvin Ham for things that might not be completely his fault, I think they should keep their hopes up and just watch. Because you still have a pathway. Just don't throw the game away in the second half the way you guys have been doing. Keep AD involved. Keep some of my favorite actions they've been running. They keep running that Spain pick and roll so often where LeBron's the first screener, Anthony Davis is the second screener who's going to be the roller, and Austin Reeves is the ball handler.
Yep.
I know it's anecdotal, but every time I watch it, it seems to work. I know it can't be 100%, but it really is their most effective play, and it was getting them a bunch of buckets in the fourth, even last game. Just keep running your best sets where you're involving those two as screeners, and you have Reeves or D'Angelo handling the ball, so we don't have D'Angelo just trying whatever pull-up nonsense he wants to try sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, run those sets repeatedly against them, wear them out, keep bringing Taurean Prince in every time Rui is cold. Bring in Christian Wood now over Jackson Hayes because I'm kind of done with Jackson Hayes minutes. There are things you can try. Maybe you get that Gabe Vincent heater because at least with him, I have a proven track record of him doing it last year. Even when Christian Brown was effective, he's never given us a heater. He's never won a series kind of off of his own scoring. It's been everything else combined, but he's never done enough of scoring. With Dinwiddie and Vincent, we kind of have a history of them being able to pull something out of a hat. So
For sure.
there's some hope here, and I can't believe I'm saying that considering they went down 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to Murray. If Murray, if
Yeah,
for some
it
reason
does.
is not himself, kind of opens the door. But if he is, I think there's enough in that 5-man unit to get one more game, especially if you're going back to Denver. I think they have enough to
Yeah,
get over the hump.
home
But
court,
yeah, it's going to be
altitude.
interesting to
Yeah.
see how Lakers approach Game 5 and what adjustments they make. We'll see how Russell does in this game. He seems to be either a godsend or a total zero. There's no in between for him. So who knows what kind of D'Angelo we'll get in Game 5? I mean, it could be anything really, either end of the spectrum. But they're going to need
Yeah.
another prime Reggie or a prime D'Angelo 20 point game to kind of keep things afloat for him.
One more thing I want to notice, and this is actually on Michael Malone's side. In game 3, they put Aaron Gordon on Anthony Davis, and I just kind of felt like that was effective. I have no idea why in game 4 they just decided, hey, Jokic, you can go guard AD again. I don't know why they did that, but I feel like backs against the wall, if they really want to make a statement here, I think Malone will end up putting Aaron Gordon back on AD, because then the key with AD is if you get enough ball denial on him and you kind of push him out with a little bit of physicality where he doesn't have the space to operate or with his face-up game or in the paint where he's so close to the hoop, I think that kind of limits his scoring potential. And if you limit AD at all, I think that's kind of where the whole Lakers sauce kind of falls apart. So they still have that in their bag that they can pull out with more frequency. And I mean, with the Lakers, the way they play, I wish off ball they ran more actions just because they do have Reeves now, and I feel like he's someone who could run that. Like a lot of times when they're stationary, I feel like they just kind of leave Rui and D'Lo and Austin Reeves kind of standing a little bit more stationary than I would like. So
Mm.
whenever Lakers fans kind of want to fire Ham, that's kind of the thing I would point to. It's like, hey, offensively off ball, I feel like they could be a little bit more creative, but otherwise, this is kind of what your personnel is, right? I mean, it is what it is. So
Yeah. I don't think it's all on Darvin Ham, or I wouldn't say like he's automatically needs to be fired, but there are some
yeah,
things he can tweak and do better. I do think he's made some mistakes in the series, and he can improve upon that for
he
sure.
has, but yeah, but I wish, I wish fan bases, especially big market fan bases, weren't always so quick to fire their coaches. I shouldn't even say big market. It really feels like a Laker thing, honestly. If I'm
It
just being
is
completely
definitely a
honest
Laker
here,
thing. Yeah.
like
They
even the
pull the
Knicks, I
trigger
don't
pretty
remember
quick.
them ever turning on Tibbs ever the way that. I mean, a Ham got. I know it's mostly LeBron and AD, but under a Ham coach team, they still made the Western Conference Finals just
Yeah.
last season,
They've
and
had
that was his
success.
first season as a head coach.
Right.
This is year 2, right? And
Mhm.
you could you could actually point more questions at the GM in terms of roster construction, the fact that they've basically been trying to recover from the Westbrook trade the whole time, the fact that KCP is only on the Nuggets because he kind of gave him away. So
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
I feel like Ham has shown enough potential where I would be hesitant to fire him. I would just try to fill out his staff with more innovative minds. And if he still doesn't do anything with that, then yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You're giving him a chance.
For
But
sure.
the fact that they went into a team where the team was already turning on Frank Vogel, it seemed like LeBron and AD didn't support him at all, and you kind of brought him in with kind of AD and LeBron's, yes, we want him. So
Mhm.
now for them, it feels like too much player control, honestly. If it's just like, yeah, we wanted him, and now when things start going bad a little bit, they're just like, yeah, we don't want him anymore, and you just fire him immediately. I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of culture message that sends. If it's just like, yeah, these two basically run the team, and it's kind of all on their whims, and even if they're the ones making some of the mistakes, we're just gonna fire the coach. I don't know how you can lure a good coach into that scenario if that's
Yeah.
kind of how you're presenting it.
No, I agree. I agree. That's just the world we live in, though. It's stars have the power, and they kind of
But not
drive.
always. Not always. We'll get to one of the series later. There's one series here where the coach is basically running things, and you can tell how effective that is.
Oh yeah, for sure. So now that we've kind of mentioned that this last series, there is one more matchup we do want to mention here for this playoff kind of check in, and that's going to be Phoenix. That's going to be Minnesota.
Yep.
This big series that is 3-0 in the Timberwolves' favor as of this recording. So this is definitely one of those series that it hasn't quite played out the way I thought it would. I at least thought it would be a little more competitive. It's 3-0, and none of the games have really been close. Come down to clutch time or anything like that. It's just kind of been a Timberwolves runaway win. So the Wolves won their last game here in Phoenix, 126 to 129. Again, they just kind of pulled away after the second quarter and just did their thing, and the Suns were powerless to stop it. With the Wolves, it was definitely more of a balanced benched attack. So this is a complete opposite scenario that we looked at with the Denver Nuggets. 33 bench points for this bench was really awesome to see. So, I mean, this bench has Nas Reed. This bench has Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Both of those guys have been fantastic. And quick shout out to Nas Reed for that Sixth Man of the Year award. It was Avi's pick in that Sixth Man of the Year pod that we had a few weeks ago. He's definitely deserving, and there's a lot of reasons that we talked about why he could be the sixth man. So if you guys want to check out that podcast, he's been a big part of this resurgent Wolves team, just with his ball handling and his shooting. Have been really key components for them. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, man, he's been so awesome, and he's really found a home in Minnesota with the ability to be a real ball hawk, to pick up guys 30 feet from the basket, and to be an improved three-point shooter. Those two facets have really caused him to be just a fantastic bench player for Minnesota. You can tell Chris Finch really trusts him when he goes out on the floor. He puts him in these lineups. He knows what he's going to get from him every single time. It's going to be a great performance. So he's been fantastic as well. But the Wolves also won the rebounding battle in this last game, 50-28. That was a huge win as well. So you look at what they're getting from their big men and just really kind of controlling the tempo and the battle in the post. They're doing their job in a huge way. Towns with 13 boards, Gobert with 14, Ant-Man chipped in with 9 of his own boards. Not to mention a cool little 36-point outburst from him, 12 of 23 shooting, 2 steals, 5 assists. He's kind of taking the next step into the superstar tier of the NBA. He's got the swagger. He's got the defensive capabilities. There are times in the game where he himself could be a ball hawk and really kind of make life a living hell for the opposing team. The Wolves, just kind of bouncing off of that, talking about the defense here. The Wolves, if anything, seems like they've gotten better. Being a complete unit on defense. They were number one in the regular season defensively, but in these playoffs, man, Devin Booker, no daylight. KD, no daylight. Beal, every point they get is extremely difficult. It comes off of a lot of dribbles, a lot of different actions to try to get them. Not even really actions, because they don't really run that much.
They don't run that many actions.
It's a pick and roll here and there, and then it just kind of flows into an isolation. I think they're just playing into the Wolves' hands, because if you're going to go mano a mano with the Wolves, and they have great individual defenders and help defenders, and it's not like you could take Gobert out and expose him. Gobert is a underrated switch defender.
He always has been. Yes. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it, because I just remember this is what happens when Gobert has competent defense around him. And it's not younger, low-energy Donovan Mitchell and Bojan trying his hardest but not being able to.
Yeah,
and Jordan Niang, who shouldn't be playing in the Cavs Magic series either. Finally, he's being surrounded with quality, capable defenders. And look how good he looks. Okay? He's not having to put out 2 fires at once, and all of a sudden, a big man looks good when he doesn't have to cover the perimeter and the paint at the same time. Go figure. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's crazy. I felt so bad for him. He should have been criticized for his offense, because the fact that he couldn't punish people like Reggie Jackson, that was kind of why they could 5-out him. But defensively, if he was getting criticism, it just felt so unfair.
It's unfair.
So unfair.
It's unfair. He can't do everything. He is Gobert. Yeah. He's a human, so he can't be in the paint. He can't be outside, both at once. But if he can really kind of key in, it's okay, let me pick up this guy one-on-one. Let me stay near the rim. You guys are going to contain your defenders. You guys are not going to get loose every possession between Nickeil and these other guys. Man, Conley. Yeah. Conley is underrated, even for his age.
He has benefited from this as well. He's benefited as well. Conley looked awful when he was trying to communicate with O'Neal. Even Royce O'Neal, he's fine, but you see him in this series. He's not the level of Hawks. These guys really are Wolves.
Yeah, they really are.
The team name fits perfectly. These guys are Wolves. And it's great for Conley. because
It really
in that
is.
with the Jazz as well, he was another one. He was struggling with perimeter defense as well. He's savvy,
Hmm.
he's sharp, but he was having communication issues with Royce O'Neal, Mitchell, a lot of his backcourt mates at that time. Like
Hmm.
they just didn't have the personnel to stop anyone. And now
Right.
that he gets to be the when Mike Conley gets to be your weakest defender every time he's on the court, he's more than good enough and scheme sound enough to avoid making mistakes, and he's enough of a playmaker where you don't want to actively pick on him,
Right.
and that makes all the difference in the world. Look at how the quick side tangent. If you look at the Olympics roster, there's a reason they didn't pick people like Brunson and Lillard and Kyrie
Yep.
and Trey
Yep.
Young and all these small
They're
guards.
targets.
It's because in the
They're
Olympic
targets.
setting, those guys are the easiest to target. And because of the fact that there's no like 3 second violation and stuff, and big men can just kind of camp out, they
Yeah.
lose some of their effectiveness as well. And when you have a
Exactly.
staff of 12 players, you don't 12 superstars, you don't need the dribble, dribble, pound, pound type of offensive
Yep.
players.
Yep. Exactly
But
right.
a lot of time when you're a smaller guard, a lot of times it really does matter your what your starting cast kind of looks like.
Yeah.
So for Conley, it's been great. Like, okay, I'll just take whoever the weakest guy is on the. Oh, Royce O'Neal's out here. Cool. He's my team. He's been my teammate. I know how to cover him. I'll just kind of
Hmm.
stand here and let. I'll just watch the show. Hey,
Yep.
man, go crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes even when they run some of those old sets, because they are still kind of like reusing some of the old sets that they used to use for Booker with Monty. Like they didn't completely throw everything out. It's like Booker had one of his best seasons under Monty Williams. They weren't just like, all right, well, you were good. I'm just gonna throw it all away. Like they're still reusing some of those sets where okay, he'll face cut in front. Okay, they'll set some screens for him with the Durant where he kind of goes around. It doesn't matter because these guys are textbook at keeping attached to Booker's hip, forcing him away from his preferred options. So sometimes they'll force him right when he doesn't want to really go right because the way it's set up, he kind of wants to go left and kind of meander his way in, drive in, and then finish with his right. Or
Hmm.
if he's trying to fade left, they'll kind of cut that off as well. They're not letting him get to his right hand on fadeaways near the baseline. Like they're doing a great job of taking away a lot of the shots that he prefers. And then we just have stuff like, oh, Kevin Durant tries isoing on Gobert, and Gobert just stays with him and gets good contests up almost every time. And so that's not even a mismatch anymore because Durant has a height advantage on most people, but he doesn't have one on Gobert. He has a wingspan advantage on most people, but he doesn't have one on Gobert. So now they don't have options. They've been outscored by
Yeah.
18 points per game in this series so far. And there's another match today. I don't think that changes.
Yeah. I don't either. It's just the Wolves have more options on their end. They can go through Ant-Man. He can kind of carry them at times. They can also go with the
That was the
balanced
biggest
attack.
change.
Yeah. They're not
Yeah.
reliant on one player to get them out. They're a two-way team. They can get the points on the board, but they can get stops. Excellent defensive team. The Suns don't have that defensive personnel. You mentioned Royce O'Neal, his deficiencies, his weaknesses, Nurkic and his weaknesses. Those other guys, Katie Booker and Beal, they can be solid, but they're not going to lock anybody down. And I'm looking here at the scoring numbers for the Suns here. It's nowhere near as bad as the Nuggets when it comes to it's not really a reserve versus bench problem. It's the big three versus everyone else problem. So you look at what the big three did here. Big three, I'm kind of using that term loosely. They're not of the same caliber as like the Heat, big three, or the Celtics, but just for the
And
sake
just
of
let
this
them have
podcast,
that. They have nothing else to cling on to. At least let them have that.
right? Yeah. So maybe like a little big three. I don't know. Some
Oh,
some
that's
other
so
term.
sad. Oh my god. They can't even have a big three. You
Right.
demoted them to medium. Oh, I'm so sorry for you guys. But
I
anyway,
feel bad saying that, but they're really not in the same caliber as some of the other three
yeah, they're
man
not. They're not.
pianos
They're
I've seen
not.
in the past.
This isn't exactly the Hamptons five out here. Yeah.
Right, right. So you have those three players. You get 28 from Beal, 25 from Durant, and you get 23 from Booker. And okay, you look at the rest of the roster. What are you getting from those guys scoring wise?
Yikes.
11 from Gordon. No one else even hit 10. Everyone else is in single digits. So those three players, it's just hard to win in the playoffs when you are so reliant on one or two players to bail you out, unless you can really just kind of be a team that can play in the mud. You can grit out games. Knicks are a prime example. Yeah, they're very reliant on Brunson, but they can win with on boards. They can win with defense. The
Yeah.
Suns don't have that.
They're
They
getting
really
crushed
don't.
on the glass.
Yeah,
Crushed in the
the
series.
same thing, the same problem that the Sixers have been having. They can't win the battle on the glass,
Oh, but it's way
so
worse
it
for
ends
them.
up
Way worse.
yeah. I mean, like I said, they lost the rebounding battle 50-28. I mean, they just got obliterated.
And it's been like that all series. The
Yep.
series average, uh, 47-32.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
it's
it's a
brutal.
recurring theme. They can't overcome it. And I mean, yeah, Nurkic is just not really kind of holding up his end. He scored 3 points that last game, 7 rebounds. He had a couple of blocks, but he's not really competent enough. He's not really solid enough to play in heavy minutes.
He's not
So
vertical enough. He's not
no,
vertical enough to be a challenge, and he himself is getting spooked by Gobert at times near the rim because
yep,
Gobert offers so much more defensive versatility at this point, and so much more as a actual shot blocker. That there are even times where Jaden McDaniels can block his shot. Like he might be a center by name, but he can't go up there like a center can anymore at this point
right,
of his career.
right. So as a result, he only played 26 minutes
Yep.
in game 3. And you bring in Drew Eubanks, and like you're not going to really. I mean, Drew was 3 for 3 for 9 points in this last game, but I mean, he's not going to be a factor on the boards.
They might as well
You're
try,
going to
man.
surrender. Yeah, so you might pick up a little bit as far as just okay, he could be a good roll man, and he's got some good vertical, but he's not going to give you much on the boards. In this last game, he had 1 rebound in 11 minutes, so that's definitely not his calling card.
Oof.
So it just kind of exacerbates an existing problem when he's in the lineup. I do want to point out one player, though, and this is the player that I alluded to earlier, that when he came in, kind of changed the complexion of the game a little bit. Josh Okogie played
Yeah.
9 minutes. I don't know if you noticed this, but he played
I
9 minutes, 8 points, 9 minutes. He hits a three, a rebound and assist. So it's like, okay, he didn't have crazy stats. He played 9 minutes. But he comes in, and I just automatically sensed a change in
Nope.
the energy level of the Suns.
I
Like
wanted
that's
them
what
the
you
whole
need
time.
sometimes. Like the game was kind of already out of hand. I wish they'd play. He came in earlier. I think Vogel should have played him maybe at the end of the second quarter or sometime in the third quarter before it was just completely gone. It was over. But he comes in. It's like how Okogie plays. Like tough as nails. I mean, he's an ex-Timberwolves player, and he really kind of won over some people in Minnesota when he was on that team. Like, yeah, he's not great offensively, but like, man, the dude he's everywhere. He's kind of like that Josh Hart type player. And I think that's something
Poor
that the
guy.
Suns don't really have. They don't have that toughness. They don't have the grit. They don't have somebody that's just going to fight tooth and nail for every possession. Like him coming in, I would want to see him play more minutes. He needs to play more minutes. Like, I'm not saying he needs to start or something like that, but if he comes in and plays
Hey man, he
15,
might need to
16,
start.
17 minutes, it could really kind of change things. Get some more rebounds. Like, he's a strong rebounder for his size. He can really help them.
I've been saying that since game one when we did this. We did the first podcast right after game one. Once you realize that the Timberwolves have reached a point with Anthony Edwards where they can take Conley off and still survive offensively because Anthony Edwards is now ready to support the load, which is really difficult, right? That's the Brunson load we're talking about, right? Where I can just put you out there as the one man, defensive personnel around you, and we'll find a way to make this work. When you can go to that sort of wrinkle, you need someone who's capable of stopping that sort. Not stopping, you can't stop a guy like Edwards, but you need someone who's capable of slowing him down, which is why it's a mystery that when they're getting absolutely decimated the last two games, it took them this long to finally go to Josh Okogie. I Since game one, I really thought one of the first adjustments would be to let's just try it with Okogie. What do we have to lose? It can't possibly be worse than what we're dealing with right now in terms of on
Right.
ball stopping. Like
Right.
none of these guys physically is capable of stopping Edwards. He's too big for them. His handle is too good now. When they try to double him, they're too small as well, so he can actually see over a lot of them. Like Grayson Allen, I know he's hurt, but even when he was fine, he's not that caliber of athlete.
Right.
Eric Gordon's too old at this stage. Defensively, he's been kind of a minus now for 2 or 3 years. Like you need a Kogi, and so it's miraculous to me that they haven't even tried it once. And well, they tried it now, but I
It's kind
feel
of too late
so
now.
so bad for him because
Yeah.
this is a man who was a Timberwolf during the lean years. And now
Mm-hmm.
finally, when they're getting good, and there's this group of teammates on the other side who I think he would vibe really well with because they all kind of have his sort of playing style mentality.
Yeah.
Now he's the one on Phoenix. Now he gets
He
stuck
would
on
be
the
a
losing
perfect
end.
guy for that
He
team.
would be
That's
a
a great point.
perfect
Yeah,
Timberwolf, and
he
the
would
poor
fit
guy
perfect.
is stuck here on Phoenix, trying to
Yeah.
put out all the fires by himself.
And you brought up Grayson Allen, and I think honestly losing him, not that he would have single handedly got them a win in
He
Game
would.
Three, but like not having him, like it's an extremely tough blow because the big three they get a lot of defensive attention, and having that fourth man be able to be a good release valve for those other three when they're getting absolutely harassed or maybe doubled at times, like just having the best 3-point shooter in the NBA this season by percentage,
Yeah,
it could only help them. I mean, he's a dead eye shooter, so I mean, there are going to be times in the entire regular season he got prime looks because of the teammates that he has. Being able to be on the wing, be in the corner, splash threes, get those attempts up. And he's really I asked earlier if the Suns are one of those teams that are near the bottom in 3-point attempts, and I mean they really don't get that much up. I mean they had 28 this past game total attempts. So that was kind of the same ballpark as Denver and the Lakers in the 20s, didn't hit 30.
but this is
They only
different.
hit 11. So, I mean, they could really use Allen just to get more attempts up
Yeah,
and also have a higher percentage just to be able to kind of like keep pace a little bit better with Minnesota because Minnesota is actually really scoring quite well right now, even though they were kind of a middle of the pack offensive team in the regular season. Like they had 126 in game 3. Like they're getting some points on the board. So, I mean, they could use a little bit more of that, even though they have a great 3-man tandem there to get points. Like they're just not able to get clean enough looks to really be efficient and to kind of match pace with the Wolves. So that's not working out.
yeah. The Suns had a dangerous combo in the sense of, again, I remember we talked about it last episode as well. No team took less layups and dunks than the Suns did, and you are right; they are in the bottom 8 in terms of their 3-point shooting. In terms of 3-point attempts per game for a
Right.
team, they're
Yeah.
bottom 8. So if you're not getting threes up, and you lost Grayson Allen, so he was one of those guys with the quick release who could get his threes up
Yeah.
against these long range defenders who are basically swallowing up any 3-point attempts the Suns even want to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were bottom 8, you lose Grayson Allen. I expect you at that point to basically be shooting 3-pointers like maybe the worst team in the league at that point. And then you don't get layups and dunks either because you don't have
Yeah.
the personnel for it. And you don't have
That's
a
not
center who can really go do that. You're
that's
just
not a
stuck in
winning
the middle.
formula.
You're actually getting squeezed.
Yeah.
Gobert is squeezing you from one side. Nikhil Alexander Walker, Anthony Edwards, and Jaden McDaniels are squeezing you from the other. It's claustrophobic when they're on the court.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. They had just running out of options. So
That's why it's so entertaining, though. I
yeah.
can't remember the last time I've seen Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, even separately, but for them to all be together and just get squeezed
Just
in like that,
yeah.
their play style get absolutely destroyed and warped. I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen that before, and this is the first time that someone's really taken advantage of some of the deficiencies in each of their games.
For sure. Yeah. It's crazy to see. Just credit to the Timberwolves and that coaching staff.
It's
Yeah.
physicality, man.
Yeah. Mark Daigneault won Coach of the Year, rightfully so.
Yeah,
Chris Finch, though, I mean, for me, he would be a number 2. He'd be a close
hundred
second
percent,
because
hundred
the
percent.
improvements that he really brought about with the Timberwolves this year can't be overstated. He did a fantastic job. So, I mean, real credit to his game plan. And in this series, it's really shown through even more.
And one last point there. One last point there. Guess how many minutes per game in this series Karl Anthony Towns has been playing?
Maybe 30, 34.
In this, no, 25 minutes per game. He's playing
Wow.
25 minutes per game. That's that, but that shows you how united this team is. You have someone who's made a bunch of all stars, but who understands, first of all, why Chris Finch wants to bench him, is willing to accept that role because he knows it's the best for the team. And then they have the personnel to execute on that. And then schematically, these guys from day one, it really is. You watch that last regular season game, they get like a week off basically. And then you watch game 1. They have completely keyed in on these players' tendencies. All
Mm-hmm.
those that are like in that regular season game, I know it was the last game of the season. The Timberwolves didn't have as much to play for, I suppose. They had the 1 seed, but maybe they weren't as worried about that as they would be for a playoff game. Beal was getting up 3-point shots like this, like, oh, just easy. Another three, like just everywhere. As soon as the playoffs started, the physicality that they've imposed on all three of those. I keep saying physicality, impose, because they really are imposing themselves on Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's
Yeah.
biggest weakness, and the reason sometimes not struggles, he's still Kevin Durant, but the reason he has more problems than I think some of the other stars in terms of name value in his caliber, someone like Steph or LeBron. The reason why he might have more trouble winning 4 series as the number one guy than some of the other players do is because he's so tall, which helps him get a shot off, but he's not physically built in a way where he can kind of drive through people. So he
Mm-hmm.
will struggle at times where if you're physically being able to press up on him, you have some height and you're able to kind of get away with legal contact in terms of how you're using your shoulders and your body, and you're able to stay in front of him. There will be times when he will be a little bit loose with the ball. He might not be able to make the right passing reads either. So you'll get this static offense where he's kind of just trying to create something out of nothing. And he's so awesome, he still will. But
Mm-hmm.
over a course of a series, it might not lead to efficient offense if he has to be your number one.
Right.
Booker, we've seen multiple times, other than last year, we've seen multiple times where at the end of a series, they start doing the same thing. You start doubling Booker sometimes in certain situations. If he tries backing himself out, you kind of corner him, trap him to the side because there's a lot of actions where he'll kind of start from the corner. If you kind of get him stuck there, all of a sudden he's gotten better at it. But if he doesn't have release valves, which he doesn't in this series, because um, all their guys are getting swallowed up and they have such range, they can do 4v3s easily. They can zone up perfectly and cover the distance, and the rotations are so fast you kind of get stuck with a situation where he might not even be able to create an advantage. And even if he does, it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if he tries to create on his own, he kind of can't get his shot up very effectively or easily against someone like Jaden McDaniels. And I mean, Beal's kind of the third Beatle here. And you would hope that maybe with those two struggling, he could provide more. But he physically just doesn't look right now like someone who can get to the rim with ease. He's actually shooting great from three, but he can't get to the rim either. And they kind of need that third complement, someone who can kind of drive to the rim and force them to maybe play Durant and Booker a little differently. He's he can't quite bring that to the table either. And anytime he tries anything at like an isolation attack, a lot of times they'll have Edwards guard him. He tries anything on Edwards, he's not going anywhere. Edwards
Right.
is playing like a 2.0 version of Beal at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what he's playing like physically. Like
Yeah.
he's not giving Beal any space, and anytime Beal is guarding him, it's toast.
Yep. No chance, man. So that's kind of the theme of this series, and unfortunately, it's probably going to end with a quick exit for the Suns, and they're going to have a lot of questions this offseason. But it just really kind of brings about an excitement level for the Timberwolves and how they might fare against what's likely to be a second round matchup against the Nuggets. So got to keep a close eye on that one because, like, man, it's really going to test the Nuggets and some of their limitations that we mentioned earlier in the pod.
32 points per game from the bench versus 12 points per game from the bench.
Big
I think
difference.
that might make a difference.
Big difference. 100%. So we'll leave you guys with that. We hope you enjoyed this podcast here, talk about these series. We'll come back when we're heading to the second round and everything is set in stone. And we'll look at those and we'll do a second round preview of those. If you guys are looking for more content just like this, be sure to check out our website, notradeclause.com. NoTrade_clause is our Twitter handle, and No Trade Clause is our tag on Instagram if you want to check out what we have over there. So we're going to leave you guys with that. Like I said, thanks again for joining another episode. And we hope to see you on the next installment of NTC as the playoffs continue to roll on. So until then, guys, take it easy. Have a good one. And we'll see you soon.